Howdy folks, this is part 3 in a series of videos covering homemade, modified, and secondhand equipment for a mineralogy lab. It became apparent after doing the last couple videos that my lab is more of a collection of stuff. I didn't go out and buy everything all at once. It was more stuff that I got when it was opportunistic, or things that I needed that I just went ahead and made myself. So anyways, the first 2 videos covered wood items, and the second one covered plastic and glass items. This is going to cover more metal items. I didn't really find a better way to organize it. The first thing that I have are a large number of stainless steel little bowls and containers. As you see on this one, it's got all sorts of dents, and I've used it for pounding stuff and doing all sorts of things to it. And I also collected a whole bunch of other different sizes too. And a lot of them I haven't used yet, but they should be nice to have on hand. I even found a couple with handles. They're kind of neat. And I even found one with a lid. Now if I know I'm going to be doing something that's really going to be a mess and something that I'm going to ruin the container, I'll just use a tin can that I cut down, and I'll actually bend the lip over so it's not a cut hazard, so it's not sharp. And I'll actually do the roasting in there, and I can actually toss the can when I'm done with it. In fact, I don't know what I was using this one for, but I pounded the heck out of the bottom. I saved these. These should work also. These are from mailing tubes, and they plug the ends of the tubes to keep whatever they're sending in the tube. But they're nice shallow metal items, so if you're doing something where you're going to be dealing with heat or something that you need a metal container, I have these on hand. And they were free, just like the tin cans. Now this is actually a pipe rock crusher that I made myself. And I'm not going to go into all the details of the sizes and parts and whatnot, because there's a bunch of videos on YouTube, if you search, that go over exactly what the fittings are that you need. And there's some different sizes too. I think you can make a larger size, but I made the smaller one. So you can put samples in there and smash them. And it works really well and is very inexpensive. You can get some pretty expensive iron mortar and pestles and things like that. It costs a lot of money, but this was pretty dirt cheap and does a fine job. And to get the sample out, you can unscrew the bottom. Pie tins and pie pans, these aluminum disposable things are handy too. I use them mostly when I do borax bead tests. So I'll do a bead, and then I'll knock the bead off onto here. And it's, you know, melt proof. I don't have to worry about melting the surface of my lab bench or anything. So that's what I use those for. The next item is something I got also at, I think maybe a flea market. And this is a tile nipper. It's actually kind of like pliers. It has kind of a little bit of a pointed edge here. And it's for busting pieces of tile. And I use this for getting small samples of rock off of a larger sample. And you can actually cut a little corner off and then take that little piece and crush it or do whatever you want with it. And it's also good if you want to break apart a sample. Maybe it's too big for your collection. You can break some edges off or do whatever. So that comes in handy. I'm going to cover alcohol stoves. One viewer commented that I have a lot of different alcohol stoves, and I was kind of surprised at that. But actually I used one type for a long time, and that was one that I made myself, and I don't have it anymore. But actually I made it out of a jar, and it's actually smaller than this one. But I just drilled a hole in the top, and I had a little piece of metal pipe, or actually you could probably use a casing from like a 22 shell or something like that, that's brass, and put it in the top. And then you can feed a cloth wick, like from terry cloth or a thicker piece of rag. Just cut a strip and poke it through. And I used that for years, and it worked great. No problems at all. The lid was starting to get quite rusty, and it looked like it was going to rust through at some point. And a friend gave me a real live alcohol lamp, so I figured I'll retire the jar lamp in favor of the alcohol lamp. And the thing is, it didn't come with a lid. So I always had trouble with the alcohol kind of evaporating between uses. So when I went to use it again, a lot of the alcohol seemed to be missing. And that's with kind of a cobbled up seal here. I haven't been able to get it to really seal up. And I should put it in another jar, but I don't have one that's big enough that seems to fit it, to keep it airtight without being huge. Another alcohol lamp that I have, and I got this at a garage sale. It's actually from an old chemistry set. It's a Skillcraft alcohol lamp. And this goes back many years, and it doesn't look like it's ever been used, and it's in fine shape. So I'm kind of sentimental over it, so I'm going to keep it for more collection purposes rather than using it, because I think that's kind of cool. It kind of takes me back to the time of the old-time chemistry sets. I did pick up a fondue burner. It's pretty basic. It does have adjustment for the air intakes. I haven't used it yet, but it would do fine for some gentle, even heating. And these might have been what was causing the confusion on the different alcohol lamps, because I started using these. And these are kind of canned heat sort of things. They're for chafing fuel. It's basically for heating, like things in a buffet line where you might have a big tray of food and they'll put a couple burners on it just to keep it warm while it's being served. And once again, I got these at a flea market or garage sale, and I got a bunch of them, and I bought them for camping, not for use in the lab. And I never used them for camping, so I figure, well, I really should kind of use them up here. So I'm using them in the lab, and they do fine. They're kind of a gentle heat, for heating different things. So it's a lot cheaper than actually buying alcohol, because alcohol can be really expensive. So these were a good deal. The next couple of items have to do with measuring specific gravity. I actually made these holders out of jar lids or bottle lids, and it's got fishing string on it, and it's meant for weighing a sample while it's suspended in water, so you can get the weight of the sample in water, or you can actually measure the buoyancy force, but that's a whole different topic. So they're just jar lids with holes in the bottom and lines. So I made those myself, and they work great. And here's a long spring that I made. There's another one too, and it's for a spring, kind of a spring balance. And but what I did is I took wire and I wrapped it along a threaded rod, and so you actually make a spring, and so that actually works. So maybe I'll show some of that video at some point. That brings us to a whole bunch of clamps for the ring stand. Now, I actually bought a couple of clamps specifically for the ring stand, like these, but actually there's a state surplus store nearby, and I got a number of clamps there. Actually, they sell material that's not being used anymore at some of the state departments. So I got this larger one, kind of a smaller one, and this is made out of aluminum. Even the ring stand clamp of it is. And I got a long stemmed one that didn't have a holder, but I did, like I said, I did buy some of these holders, which are a lot cheaper than buying a whole clamp. The clamps are quite expensive. I'm not sure why. This is something I got. I don't know what the circles were for, but I cut it out, and it has kind of an end to it, and I bent it. So you can use this as a ring stand, but as you can tell, it's kind of twisting. So I don't really trust it. So it was an idea, but it doesn't seem to really be worth the effort and the risk of actually something spilling. So I did buy some regular ring stand rings. This I bought from a little chemistry supply place. It's just wire screen with some heat-resistant material, but I bet you could just use regular metal screen that you have. I also use this grating too. This was, I think, from an old charcoal grate that I picked up somewhere, and I cut it down, and I could put it on a ring stand and put beakers and stuff on there to use. So that's just fine. The next category are spoons and scoops. This is an ordinary kitchen spoon. You probably got some extras in the drawer. If not, you can get them for practically nothing at the thrift store. They're nice to have. And these really come in handy, especially for small amounts of materials. And what these are baby spoons. As you can see, they're small. But you might not recognize them in the thrift store because they usually have them coated in rubber or plastic. There's a rubber coating that's usually a bright fluorescent pink or blue or something like that. And what you do is you just cut off the plastic or peel it off, and you're left with a nice stainless steel spoon. And not only is it good for scooping, but you can actually heat samples in there where you want to heat it on stainless steel. And so you have a nice small holder that you can heat it in. And toss them too, because they're dirt cheap. These scoops, I think one I bought at a little chemistry supply place, but the other one I picked up at a garage sale. And I also found out that they have these at some of the big craft stores, the brand name craft stores. And I don't know why or what they use them for, but supposedly they have them, and I think I saw them online once. I think they're like less than $1 a piece. Here's another spoon that's handy that I picked up, used. I'm not sure what it was originally meant for, but it's nice because it has this long handle, so I can go really deep into a jar or something, and so that's good. And this is nice when you're dealing with smaller materials too. It's kind of a miniature spatula and miniature spoon with drainage holes. And it's really easy to pick up a whole bunch of tweezers, and I've picked a whole bunch. I don't have them all here, but they're easy to come by at garage sales. And what's nice is you can modify the tips to anything that you want. And this one I made to a pretty sharp point, so you can get some fine stuff. You can get other ones that are, you can modify, or they come with a flat tip to it. This one's different because it has kind of a V-notch in the end, so you get a real positive grip on things. And this I bought new, but it really comes in handy if you can find it, especially used. But it's a spring, I don't know what you call it, but it's a kind of a spring clamp tweezer thing. It holds itself closed, so you have to squeeze it to open it. And that's really handy for holding samples, either when you're doing something in a flame or whatever. You don't have to keep putting a positive pressure on it. These are garage sale items. It's propane torches. I think this one's about empty, but this has kind of a three-pronged, more of a broad point, and this is more of a pencil point tip on the burners. I've used this to heat larger items, especially. And for a lot of my testing, I use a small butane torch, and I haven't been able to find a cheap source for those. And this is actually what I use. It's called it says Micro Torch GB-2001, and it's butane, but they're kind of expensive. So this one I haven't been able to find on the cheap. We have some other items here. These are some larger bowls for general lab use. Here are a couple of cast iron skillets, miniature actually, are pretty small. I'm not sure what size this is, and I've never used either one of them. They're really sturdy, so who knows, maybe I'll need them. The next category of things are strainers, and these are larger ones. And this is actually the basket to a deep fryer, and it's I use it mainly to classify. You can get the smaller rocks from the larger rocks and separate things out that way. This is actually a kitchen strainer, which is on the finer side, And this is actually a screen for covering a fry pan, I believe, to keep the grease from flying out. And it's a really fine mesh, so I don't know if I've actually used that for anything yet or not, but it may come in handy. These I use more, and these are smaller diameter screens. And this is a coarser screen, and I have a bunch of smaller ones too that I can sift through. And basically when I'm maybe grinding a sample, what I'll do is I'll grind it as best as I can, and I'll sift it out and let the fine stuff go through, and the coarser stuff I'll put back into the grinder or the mortar and pestle and grind it some more and sift it again to make sure everything's uniform. The next items are actually clamps and tongs. And this one's actually a metal clamp, for a barbecue grill. And I got that for practically nothing. And as you can see, I have a whole range of these grabbers here. I don't know what you call them. But I have a couple with plastic handles, and these aren't very good quality. What you want to do is actually look for ones made in the USA. And this one's actually made in Chicago by Von Han or something like that. But a lot of them are made in the USA by Echo, and either one of them, they're very good. The quality is much better. They're older. I'm sure they don't make them like that if they make them at all. But sometimes the larger end here will get in the way if you're trying to get something very fine. So actually I took a pair, and with the torch I bent and reformed the end and actually cut some of it off. And I have some real nice tongs. These come in handy if you want to get something out of a crucible or take the crucible lid off, and you're good to go. They're really nice, and like I said, it costs just about nothing. Speaking of crucibles, I actually use these also to pick up crucibles, where the curved part the crucible can sometimes fit into, and you can actually go along the outside of the crucible and lift it up. You can modify these to any shape that you want. So usually I have enough different sizes here that I don't have to worry about modifying anything. But you can make any size or any shape that you want out of these, which makes them really handy. And the last item I'll mention are these stainless steel water bottles. And there's also a number of aluminum that seem to be everywhere now that you can get for practically nothing. I haven't used it yet, but I imagine you can modify it to a whole number of different things. So I bought one just to have on hand in case there's something I might want to use it for. I could also mention a whole bunch of things that are used out in the field, like rock hammers and chisels and digging implements. But those are mostly field items, even though I will use them sometime here at home for the lab for breaking things up or whatever. But we'll leave that for a different topic. So thank you for watching the video. I hope you got some good ideas. There's probably a lot of things that I found that you won't be able to find or get a good deal on, but I'm sure you're going to be able to find a lot of things that are a better deal than I've been able to find. So you just got to keep your eyes open and see what comes along, and see what you can build too as far as your skill sets. There's some things that I've done, but other things that are kind of outside of my realm that people have skills that I don't. So anyways, stay tuned, and we still have at least a couple more videos to go in this series. So happy lab collecting!